Night was slowly beginning to settle in as the family's car traversed the long and winding road that meandered through mountains and forests. Their destination was the grandparents' house, where they planned to spend a special and peaceful weekend away from the hustle and bustle of the city. For Clara, the couple's youngest daughter, any trip was an adventure, but with Bailey by her side, this adventure became even more special. With his head resting next to Clara in the back seat, the faithful German Shepherd observed the landscape outside, his eyes reflecting a trust and loyalty that only he seemed to convey. The seemingly endless road continued winding through the valley, surrounded by trees whose shadows, cast by the car's headlights, took on mysterious and curious shapes, giving the path an almost magical air. Clara entertained herself by pointing out imaginary figures formed by the tree canopies, laughing to herself at her discoveries. Beside her, her parents watched with tenderness, sharing knowing glances and silent smiles. Those simple moments, filled with affection, always seemed more intense during their travels. Bailey, for his part, alternated between watching the girl beside him and fixing his gaze on the trees sliding by the window. He noticed the details of each tree, every movement change in the car, and every sound coming from the road, always attentive, as if something could emerge at any moment. To the family, he was much more than just a pet. He was a guardian, always ready to protect and accompany them on any adventure. And for him, the most important mission was to keep them safe. With every kilometer traveled, the road appeared more deserted, enveloped by the growing darkness of the night. The city lights were now far behind, and the feeling of isolation mingled with the mystery that darkness brought. Amid this uninhabited expanse, the sound of the engine was the only thing breaking the silence. Even amidst apparent tranquility, Bailey did not lower his guard. His instincts kept him alert to any changes, any sign that something could go awry. The car's headlights illuminated the road and cast ghostly shadows on the trees, which rose on either side like silent guardians of the path. Clara, fascinated, continued pointing out the shadows and imagining stories for each one. Bailey, sensing Clara's joy and innocence as an extension of himself, stayed close to her, observing intently. He knew the girl trusted him, and that mutual trust made them almost inseparable. Bailey felt that this journey was special. Perhaps it was because he sensed the joy of his owners, or noticed the ease with which they shared moments of silence and conversation in the car. But at the same time, his instincts kept him alert. The darkness of the road, the stillness around them, and the sense of isolation brought him a subtle foreboding, a call to stay vigilant for anything out of the ordinary. Memories of other outings with the family came to his mind, like fragments of moments when he had been by their side during simple yet affectionate and loyal occasions. Bailey had always been like that, an attentive observer, a silent protector. He knew his place was there, beside them, like a vigilant and trustworthy shadow. In the front seat, Clara's parents engaged in a relaxed conversation about their weekend plans. They talked about the grandmother's homemade meals, family card games, and the funny stories that always emerged around the table. It was during these moments that Bailey seemed to connect even more with the family, as if he understood that while he was present, they would be safe and protected. As they advanced along the increasingly narrow road, Bailey began to notice a shift in the rhythm of the journey. The surrounding landscape, once inviting, now seemed to plunge into the darkness of a night that promised to be long. The air felt denser, and the silence, once reassuring, now seemed to weigh heavily on the car. In response, he adopted a posture of absolute attention, as if ready for any unforeseen events. While the car continued down the lonely road, Clara eventually fell asleep next to Bailey, and the dog remained by her side, watching her peaceful breathing. He felt responsible for the girl's sleep, as if ensuring that rest was part of his guardian duty. The parents spoke in hushed tones, fearing to wake her, and the atmosphere was filled with an almost solemn peace. However, something inside Bailey kept him alert, even with the apparent tranquility filling the car. He continued to watch the road intently, his posture rigid and focused, for he knew that for him, this was one of the most important moments. In that instant, Bailey was much more than a companion dog. He was the invisible shield of that family, ready for any situation that might threaten their safety and peace. And so, with his eyes fixed on the road and his heart full of loyalty, Bailey stayed vigilant as the car continued its journey along the silent and deserted road. The road continued to stretch out before them, a dark line beneath the starry sky, when suddenly a loud noise interrupted the silence of the night. The sound of tires screeching on the pavement turned into a sharp creak, as if the car was losing control. Bailey, who had been alert until then, felt his protective instincts kick in. He abruptly stood up, positioning himself in front of Clara, even as the car began to sway uncontrollably. The vehicle veered to the left, then to the right, while the shouts of surprise and concern from the parents echoed in the cabin. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. The car, unable to withstand the frantic movement, collided with a small embankment, creating a deafening noise that reverberated through the darkness. The impact was brutal, and the vehicle flipped over, spinning like a leaf in the wind before finally coming to rest on its side, silence filling the space around. Despite the confusion and chaos, Bailey knew he needed to act. The first thing he did was check if Clara was okay. He turned around, his heart racing, searching for any sign that the girl was hurt. Seeing her, strapped in her seatbelt and still holding her favorite stuffed animal, relieved some of his panic. She was scared but seemingly unharmed, which filled Bailey with determination. He then turned to the parents, who looked dazed and confused but still breathing. Bailey's protective instincts were stronger than ever. The parents, though stunned, began to try to move, but the seatbelts made it difficult to free themselves. Bailey sensed that time was of the essence. He felt the urgency, as if the night itself were pressing him to act. The dog started wagging his tail, trying to encourage the family to calm down and focus, while he looked toward the car window, searching for any sign of help. Then, Bailey saw a light in the distance. It was a flashlight, probably from a passing car on the road. He didn't hesitate. The instinct to survive and the desire to protect his family were stronger than fear. With a determined leap, Bailey jumped out of the overturned vehicle, carefully slipping through the broken window and landing on the grassy terrain. The sensation of the earth beneath his paws was comforting, and determination guided him as he ran toward the road. The darkness enveloped the road, but the lights of the headlights in the distance were growing quickly. Bailey knew he had to be fast. He kept his eyes fixed on the light and ran with all his might, feeling the cold wind of the night on his fur. Instinct drove him to believe that something more important was at stake now. He was not just running for himself, but for Clara, his parents, and their safety. Every step was motivated by the love and devotion he felt for his family. As he ran, his mind filled with thoughts of the family who had always been by his side. He remembered sunny days at the park, hikes on mountain trails, and quiet nights at home, where they all gathered around the sofa, laughing and playing. Those moments meant everything to him, and the thought of losing them drove him even harder. He couldn't allow anything to happen to those he loved. Bailey finally reached the roadside, where the lights of a car approached rapidly. He began to run toward the vehicle, wagging his tail and barking desperately. The need to catch the driver's attention was paramount. With each bark, he strained to be heard, his voice echoing in the silent night. The car came closer, and when the driver saw Bailey's figure by the roadside, he immediately slowed down. The driver, a middle-aged man with a worried expression, stopped the vehicle and quickly got out. He realized something was wrong. Bailey, sensing he had captured the man's attention, ran in circles, barking and leading him back to the accident scene. His urgency was palpable, and the man, understanding that he needed to follow this restless dog, trailed closely behind. Meanwhile, inside the overturned car, the situation was tense. Clara, still trapped, looked at her parents, trying to understand what was happening. Her father was starting to move, trying to help her mother, who seemed dazed. Bailey's determination to seek help was exactly what they needed, even if they didn't know it. They couldn't afford to panic. They needed to trust that everything would be okay. Bailey led the man to the accident site, his energy and focus capturing the man's attention. As soon as they arrived, the driver quickly assessed the situation and rushed to help the family. Bailey's instincts had saved the day, bringing the necessary help in a moment of desperation. Now, it was just a matter of time until the family was rescued, and Bailey knew that everything he had done up until then had been worth it. The night breeze continued to blow gently, bringing with it a sense of urgency. The man, realizing the gravity of the situation, wasted no time. He called emergency services while running toward the overturned car. With a firm voice, he described the situation and the location of the accident, requesting immediate assistance. Sirens could be heard in the distance, but every second felt like an eternity for Bailey, who waited anxiously by the side of the road. Meanwhile, inside the car, the atmosphere was tense. Clara's father was trying to calm his daughter, assuring her that everything would be okay. Her mother, still dazed, was also trying to recover, struggling to free herself from the seatbelt that restrained her. With her eyes focused on her daughter, she made an effort to remain calm. The car, although turned on its side, still offered a certain level of safety, but the feeling of vulnerability was palpable. Every noise from outside became a distant echo, a reminder that they needed to get out of there. Bailey, sensing the family's anxiety, ran back to the car. He knew that his presence was a source of comfort. With his loving and attentive gaze, he positioned himself beside the broken window, offering a gentle wag of his tail, as if to say, "I'm here, and everything will be all right." His unwavering loyalty was a constant reminder that they were not alone, even amidst the chaos. As the lights of the sirens began to appear in the darkness, a wave of relief washed over Bailey. He knew help was on the way, but his concern for Clara and her parents kept him alert. The driver who had found Bailey was now back at the vehicle, instructing the rescuers to follow his lead. The adrenaline was high, and action was beginning to take shape. The first responders arrived quickly, wearing uniforms that reflected the light of the sirens. One of them, a woman with a determined look, approached the family. She assessed the situation and, with a calm gesture, began instructing others to prepare to rescue the occupants of the car. Bailey, attentive to every move, barked softly, trying to communicate the urgency of the situation. He knew he needed to stay focused and close to the family. With a concerted effort, the rescuers began to work. They used tools to open the car, while one of them, keeping an eye on the family, reassured them. The woman from the team, noticing the mother's emotional state, approached and did her best to offer words of encouragement, reminding her that they were there to help. Bailey, watching the family being treated, felt a mix of relief and restlessness. He did not stray from the car, remaining by their side, always ready to do whatever was necessary. The dog was a constant presence, and his loyalty did not go unnoticed. He felt that the emotional connection with Clara and her parents was crucial at that moment, and his positive energy was a beacon in the darkness. Finally, the rescuers managed to open the door and began to help the family out of the car. The father, with a head injury, was the first to be assisted, followed by the mother, who, although still a bit disoriented, was relieved to feel the rescuer's hand holding hers. Clara, finally freed from the seatbelt, was embraced with love and attention by another rescuer, who crouched down to be at her level. Bailey approached, relieved to see that everyone was receiving the help they needed. He knew it was now time to protect his family, even if only with his comforting presence. The man who had stopped to help also joined the group, sharing information about what had happened while the rescuers began first aid. The chaos began to dissipate as the family was assisted. The mother, noticing Bailey's presence, called him with a look of gratitude and love. The dog ran toward her, resting his head in her lap, as if to say that everything would be all right. She stroked his fur, feeling the unbreakable bond between them. The affection that Bailey offered was a balm for their wounded souls. The sirens continued to blare, and more emergency vehicles arrived on the scene. The rescuers worked tirelessly to ensure the family was safe. The medical team quickly assessed the injuries and decided that the family should be taken to the hospital for more detailed examinations, even though they seemed to be in good condition. With the arrival of the ambulance, the atmosphere of relief intensified. Clara, now safe, looked at Bailey with admiration. To her, he was not just a dog. He was a hero. The connection she felt to him was unparalleled, and knowing that he had run to seek help filled her with gratitude. Bailey, sensing her adoring gaze, wagged his tail, feeling that he had fulfilled his mission. As the family was carefully placed in the ambulance, Bailey stayed by their side, watching everything with his attentive eyes. He felt he was where he needed to be. He knew that love and protection were essential for their recovery, and that his loyalty would never be forgotten. With one last glance, he jumped into the ambulance, ready to follow his family wherever they needed to go. The ambulance sped down the road, its lights flashing against the darkness of the night. Inside, the atmosphere was tense, yet there was a feeling of relief mingled with concern. Clara, still dazed, held tightly to Bailey's paw, feeling more secure with him by her side. The dog, sensing her nervousness, stayed close, resting his head in her lap as if to protect her from everything that had happened. Upon arriving at the hospital, the medical team was ready to receive the family. Clara watched as the paramedics quickly transferred her father to a stretcher. He looked confused, but her mother reassured him that everything would be all right. Bailey followed every movement, his protective instincts heightened. As soon as her father was taken inside the hospital, Clara and her mother were guided to a triage area. In the hospital environment, the sounds of the siren and machines created a strange symphony, blending fear and hope. Clara, feeling a bit lost, looked around and spotted a colorful bulletin board filled with drawings and encouraging messages. This made her smile a little, but the worry for her father kept nagging at her. She wished he was okay and could come home soon. Bailey, sensing Clara's anxiety, never strayed far from her side. He stayed close, as if aware that his presence could offer comfort amid the chaos. When a nurse approached to examine Clara, he sat beside her, watching with attentive eyes. It was as if the dog knew that Clara needed a loyal friend at that moment, someone to calm her. The nurse, noticing the connection between Clara and Bailey, smiled and asked if she would like the dog to stay with her during the examination. With a nod, Clara accepted, and the nurse positioned Bailey closer to her. This simple act brought a little peace to the girl's heart. As the examination proceeded, Clara began to feel more relaxed. The nurse spoke softly, explaining each step of the process, while Bailey nestled beside her, his warm and comforting fur easing her anxiety. Clara started to wonder how different her life would be without Bailey by her side. He was more than just a pet. He was a true member of the family. After the triage, Clara and her mother were taken to a waiting room where her father had been taken for treatment. The atmosphere was a mix of nervousness and anticipation. Clara looked at her mother, who appeared visibly worried, and decided she needed to do something to cheer her up. While Bailey rested beside her, she began to draw on the paper she had found on the table. Her hands moved quickly, creating images of landscapes and, of course, of Bailey. Time seemed to stretch as they waited for news about her father. The tension in the air was palpable, but the dog maintained an aura of tranquility. Clara felt that despite the difficulties, everything would be all right. She thought about the strength of her family and the love they shared. After all, even in uncertain moments, there was always a thread of hope. Finally, a doctor appeared. With a calm smile, she informed them that her father was stable but needed some additional tests. The news brought instant relief to everyone in the room. Clara felt the pressure in her chest ease, and her mother's worried expression began to soften. They knew that although the situation was serious, there was hope, and the family's love was strong. With the confirmation that her father was all right, Clara decided she needed to do something special. She looked at Bailey and had an idea. Together, mother and daughter began to plan how they would support her father once he came out of the tests. It was a moment of unity and courage, and Bailey was a part of that plan. As the hours passed, the family gathered around Bailey, who became the center of attention. Clara began telling stories about the adventures they had shared, like when they went to the park and ran freely, as if the world belonged to them. Each memory brought smiles and laughter, helping to alleviate the tension. The wait continued, but Bailey's presence made everything more bearable. He was a constant reminder that despite the hardships, there was always room for love and joy. When the door opened and her father was brought back, Clara felt a surge of joy. He was a bit hurt, but his smile lit up the room. The family embraced, and Bailey, happy with the reunion, jumped around as if celebrating everyone's victory.
Before we continue with this exciting story, make sure you are already subscribed to the channel and leave a like on this video to always stay up to date with new content.
There, in the hospital, amid the stress and uncertainty, the bond between them was stronger than ever. The love they shared united them, and Bailey was the link that made everything possible. Together, they would face any challenge life presented, always guided by the love and loyalty that a dog like Bailey offered. After a few hours of waiting, the family finally received the news that their father was ready to be discharged. Clara could hardly contain her joy at seeing the smile on his face, although the expression of pain was still present. Bailey, with his contagious energy, was as excited as she was, jumping and wagging his tail as if celebrating the family's victory over the challenges they had faced. As they left the hospital, Clara held her father's hand tightly while her mother helped guide him. The outside environment was cool and the air felt lighter. Clara watched as the hospital lights slowly dimmed behind them, symbolizing the end of a difficult chapter. Once they got into the car, Bailey settled down next to Clara, as if he was aware that his role as protector was not over. The journey back home felt longer than usual. The once familiar streets now carried a sense of novelty and fragility. Clara looked out the window, watching the trees and houses pass by, reflecting on everything that had happened. She felt grateful for Bailey, who had played a crucial role in her emotional recovery. Without him, things might have been different. The dog had been a beacon of hope, always present when darkness threatened to engulf them. As they drove, her mother began to talk about the importance of being together as a family. She explained that despite the challenges, each of them had a special role. Clara listened attentively, understanding that love and unity were essential. Bailey seemed to listen too, his head held high and eyes shining, as if absorbing every word. He represented the loyalty and courage that each family member needed at that moment. Finally, upon arriving home, Clara felt a wave of relief. The home, which had long been a safe haven, now felt more welcoming than ever. The walls knew their laughter and sadness, and the familiar smell of the house brought forth pleasant memories. Bailey jumped out of the car as soon as the door was opened, running toward the backyard. Clara followed him, feeling that this freedom and joy were what everyone needed. In the backyard, Bailey started to run in circles, his exuberant energy contagious to Clara. She laughed, momentarily forgetting the worries that had haunted her. Her father, even with his fatigue, watched with a smile on his face. It was as if the dog had the ability to bring back the light, even in times of darkness. Clara decided she needed to do something special to celebrate her father's return. With her mother's help, she began to prepare a simple yet delicious snack. As they cooked, the aroma of the food filled the house, bringing with it a sense of normalcy. Bailey's presence, patiently waiting for a treat, added a touch of joy to the moment. After the meal, The family gathered in the living room. Laughter began to echo through the house, and stories about what they had gone through became a form of healing. Clara remembered Bailey's bravery and how he had run to seek help. Each family member expressed their gratitude for the dog, who seemed to understand the importance of what they had experienced. He settled among them, receiving affection and praise, knowing he held a special place in their hearts. At the end of the day, Clara climbed to her room, tired but satisfied. She looked out the window at the starry sky and felt that, despite everything, there was a sense of hope. Life would go on, and they would face challenges together. Bailey, with his unconditional love, would always be by her side, ready to tackle any situation. And so, in that home, the family's resilience flourished. The lessons learned, the renewed love, and the connection with Bailey became the foundations for the future. Clara closed her eyes, grateful for her family and her loyal friend, knowing that together they could overcome any obstacle that life presented to them. The sun was shining gently through Clara's bedroom window the next morning, announcing a new day. After a night filled with emotions and laughter, she awoke with a renewed sense of hope. Bailey was lying next to her, his front paws stretched out in peaceful slumber. Clara patted his head, feeling the comfort that only a loyal friend could provide. The dog opened his eyes, wagged his tail, and seemed ready for another day of adventures. After getting ready, Clara went downstairs, where the smell of fresh coffee and warm bread awaited her. Her mother was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast with a smile on her face. Her father was sitting at the table, reading the newspaper, and his eyes lit up when he saw his daughter. He looked stronger and more alert, which filled Clara's heart with joy. Bailey ran into the kitchen, his enthusiasm infecting the atmosphere. During breakfast, Clara observed her family, feeling grateful for their presence. The conversations were light, and the tension that had previously permeated the space seemed to have dissipated. Everyone was focused on recovering and enjoying each other's company. The dog, always attentive, positioned himself between the two, hoping for a piece of bread or a crumb that might fall. Clara gave Bailey a little piece, and he thanked her with a grateful look, as if he understood that the gesture symbolized the family's unity. After breakfast, Clara decided it was the perfect time for a walk. She looked at Bailey, who immediately began to bounce with joy. The idea of exploring the yard and the surroundings brought a new energy to the group. Clara's mother, always concerned for their safety, decided to join them, and together they stepped out into the fresh morning air. The backyard was filled with colorful flowers and singing birds, creating a vibrant atmosphere. Bailey ran ahead, sniffing every corner, his adventurous spirit lighting up the morning. Clara and her mother followed, chatting about the little things in daily life, such as the need to care for the garden and the news from the neighborhood. Her father, although more cautious, walked behind, watching with a satisfied smile at the happiness of his family. As they walked, Clara began to notice how the nature around her reflected what she felt. The flowers were blooming, the birds were singing, and life seemed to be resuming its normal course. It was a reminder that even after difficult moments, beauty and joy could be reborn. Bailey, with his contagious energy, seemed to be the catalyst for this transformation. With each step, Clara felt lighter, freer, and more grateful. After a refreshing walk, the family decided to sit in a corner of the yard to rest. Clara's mother brought natural juices and cookies left over from breakfast, and they all sat together on a blanket. Clara looked at Bailey, who was lying beside her, watching the birds with a curious expression. He seemed happy and at peace, which brought great comfort to the girl. As they enjoyed their snack, the conversation flowed naturally. Her father began to tell stories from his childhood, sharing his memories of adventures and mischief. Clara and her mother listened attentively, laughing and commenting on his life experiences. Bailey, sensing the joyful atmosphere, began to get up and run in circles, as if he were participating in the conversation, his presence enriching the moment. After the snack, Clara suggested that they should do something special for Bailey, a way to thank him for everything he had done. Her mother loved the idea, and together they started planning a small thank you party for the dog. Clara imagined a special cake made with ingredients that Bailey loved, along with a trip to the park later. The excitement grew among them, and Bailey, sensing the commotion, began to bark with happiness. The day continued with a feeling of lightness and renewal. The memories of the accident became part of the past, and now the family focused on the present and what was to come. Each member was committed to supporting one another and celebrating life. Clara felt that the love between them had strengthened, and Bailey had become the symbol of that special connection. As the day came to a close and the sun set on the horizon, Clara reflected on the journey they had taken. There had been moments of fear and uncertainty, but now the light of hope shone brightly. Bailey was by her side, loyal and loving, always ready to face any challenge. Gratitude filled her heart, and the family's joy became a fundamental part of her life. With renewed confidence and strengthened unity, Clara knew that regardless of what happened, they would always be together. The day of the party finally arrived, and Clara woke up with contagious energy. The sun shone brightly, promising a perfect day. As she got ready, she thought about how to make this event special for Bailey. She wanted him to feel all the love and gratitude the family had for his loyalty and courage. The dog deserved a celebration full of affection. After a simple breakfast, Clara and her mother headed to the kitchen to start preparing the food. They decided to make a dog-friendly birthday cake using ingredients Bailey loved, such as sweet potatoes and peanut butter. As they mixed the ingredients, the delicious aroma filled the house. Clara could hardly wait to see Bailey's reaction when he saw the cake. While the cake was baking, Clara and her mother spent some time decorating the living room and the yard. Colorful balloons were hung, and a banner reading "Happy Day, Bailey" was placed in a prominent spot. Clara's excitement was palpable, and she was determined to make everything perfect. Her mother, although still concerned about her husband's health, allowed herself to smile and enjoy the moment. Bailey, for his part, was intrigued by all the commotion. He paced back and forth, sniffing the air and trying to understand the reason behind the excitement. Clara petted him, scratching his head and telling him he was about to have an amazing day. The dog seemed to sense that something special was coming, as his eyes sparkled with anticipation. With the cake finally ready and cooling on the table, Clara had an idea. She decided that they should invite some neighborhood friends to join in the celebration. So, she grabbed her phone and started sending messages to her school friends, explaining that they were organizing a party in honor of Bailey. Responses began to pour in quickly, and everyone was excited to participate. When the party started, joy took over the yard. Clara's friends arrived with their own dogs, and the excitement was instantaneous. The sounds of barking and laughter filled the air, and the family felt rejuvenated seeing how happy Bailey was. He ran among the dogs, making new friends and playing as if there were no worries in the world. Clara and her mother organized some activities for the dogs, such as races and trick competitions. Everyone was involved, and the atmosphere was pure fun. The sense of unity and friendship was strong, and Bailey's presence brought everyone together even more. He was the center of attention, receiving affection and compliments from everyone, and each time someone called him, his tail wagged as a sign of gratitude. Finally, the most anticipated moment arrived, the cake cutting. Clara prepared herself, her heart racing with emotion. The sweet potato cake, decorated with a yogurt frosting and dog treats, was on a table in the center of the yard. Everyone gathered around, and Clara began to tell the story of how Bailey had been a true hero, saving the family during the accident. Her friends cheered, their faces lit up with admiration for the dog. With a small slice, Clara served the cake to Bailey, who immediately began devouring it with enthusiasm. Laughter and applause echoed, celebrating that special moment. Meanwhile, the other dogs received their portions too, and the party turned into a fun competition to see who could eat faster. The happiness was contagious, and everyone was united in a celebration of love and friendship. At the end of the party, Clara sat in a corner of the yard, watching everything around her. The scene was perfect. Friends having fun, laughter echoing, and Bailey running back and forth, clearly satisfied. Her heart filled with joy as she realized how special that day had become for everyone. It was a reminder that even in difficult times, unity and joy could emerge from the most challenging situations. As the party came to an end, Clara decided that this would be just the first of many days of celebration for Bailey and his family. Life had taught everyone that gratitude and love were essential, and that no matter how many challenges arose, mutual support would always make everything easier. When night fell, the yard lights began to shine, and Clara, along with her family and friends, sat down to admire the starry sky. Bailey, tired, lay at her feet, and Clara petted him, promising that they would be together for all the adventures yet to come. With the certainty that life would continue to be filled with love and special moments, Clara closed her eyes and let the peace envelop her, knowing that everything would be all right. The day after the party started peacefully, with the sun shining brightly on the house. Clara woke up early, feeling rejuvenated after the celebration. The joy still lingered in the air, and she recalled every detail of that special day. As she stretched, she looked at Bailey, who was peacefully sleeping beside her. The dog looked like a true angel, and Clara felt immense love for him. As she got up, Clara decided it was time to establish new routines that included Bailey more actively in her life. Inspired by the previous day, she began thinking of activities that could further strengthen their bond. Clara knew she needed to do her best for her loyal friend, and that together they could face any challenges that might arise. After a simple breakfast, Clara and her mother headed to the local park. It was a spacious place, filled with trees and a lake where dogs could have fun. Clara had decided that this would be a great opportunity to socialize Bailey with other animals and let him explore new environments. Upon arrival, Clara unleashed Bailey, who immediately took off excitedly toward the open space. The freedom of the park brought new vitality to Bailey. He leaped, ran, and played, making new canine friends. Clara watched with a smile on her face, admiring how her dog behaved like a true explorer. At the same time, the memories of the accident and the moments of tension felt distant. The happiness radiating from Bailey was contagious, and Clara felt grateful to have him in her life. As the day progressed, Clara thought it would be a good idea to engage Bailey in activities that would challenge his mind and skills. She began researching training exercises that could help him learn new tricks and even some tasks that could be useful in everyday situations. The idea of having a dog who was not only loyal, but also skilled filled Clara with enthusiasm. In the following days, Clara and Bailey started working together on simple tricks like sit, shake, and even play dead. Each success brought a wave of joy. Bailey, with his intelligence and eagerness to please, quickly mastered the commands, and Clara felt fulfilled with every accomplishment. The training not only strengthened their bond, but also served as a reminder that patience and persistence would always yield positive results. Besides the training, Clara decided that Bailey needed more opportunities for socialization. She organized weekly meetups with other dogs and their owners, creating a small group of canine and human friends. These gatherings became a highlight of the week, and everyone eagerly anticipated them. Bailey loved running and playing with his new friends, and Clara was always ready to capture the special moments with her camera. Time passed, and with the arrival of summer, Clara remembered an annual event that took place in the city, the dog race. It was a competition that brought together dogs and their owners in various categories. Clara immediately became interested in signing Bailey up. With excitement taking over, she began training even harder, preparing Bailey for the race. The dog seemed to enjoy it, and with each run, his energy increased. The preparation culminated in a sunny, vibrant day. Clara was nervous, but also filled with anticipation. She remembered how far they had come since the accident and how Bailey had been a true hero. That race was more than just a competition. It was a celebration of their friendship and the new life they had built together. In the race, Bailey showcased all his skill and agility, surprising everyone with his performance. He ran with enthusiasm, and Clara was determined to savor every second. When they crossed the finish line, the feeling of achievement was indescribable. Although they hadn't won, the moment was celebrated as a personal victory, reinforcing the bond between Clara and Bailey. After the race, the park filled with laughter and joy. Clara realized that the experience was not just about the competition, but about the journey they had shared. The happiness of being surrounded by friends and the vibrant energy of Bailey made the day unforgettable. Clara felt that, despite the difficulties, there would always be room for celebration and gratitude. The rest of the summer was filled with new adventures. Clara and Bailey explored trails, visited new parks, and participated in activities that strengthened their bond. The dog, always by her side, showed that loyalty and love were true treasures. Looking to the future, Clara knew life was full of uncertainties, but she also understood that she had a loyal companion by her side. Together, they could overcome any obstacle and turn challenges into opportunities for growth and love.
Thanks for watching until the end. What did you think of today's story? Leave your opinion in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Until next time.